have Suzanne Clark, and Suzanne is the president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and she'll speak to us in just a little bit. But as we get things started, I'd like to recognize and thank those who have been with us from participating for the last 2 days in our destination management strategic planning process. We had great interaction. We also, it was nice to see elected officials, residents, business owners all involved and participating to help produce this 10-year destination strategic management plan. And you'll be hearing a little bit more of the recap of that later on in the call this morning. And also, I was proud and are pleased to share some really good news. And I was delighted when I saw that the S&P closed at an all-time high. So since it's low on March 23rd to hitting its all-time high, it's up 54% since that date in March. And that's great news for all of us. And then it was also really good to see that the U.S. homes boomed 22.6% last month. So good, encouraging signs there. And those are certainly lead-ins to our speaker. And we're just delighted to have really what many think and know that she's one of the most powerful women in Washington. And she's the president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And the U.S. Chambers, the leader of the largest business federation in the world. And the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce is delighted to be a proud member, participant, active member with the U.S. Chamber, partnering on many initiatives. You might have recently seen Suzanne interview Dr. Fauci as part of the U.S. Chamber's Thought Leader Series. And she's incredibly well respected in the halls, not only of our nation's capital, but in the boardrooms of the most successful companies in the world. And Suzanne's certainly a friend of ours. We were talking a little bit ago about the last time that we saw each other was in March at a U.S. Chamber meeting. And that was the night that the NBA shut down basketball right at the start of a game. So that's a moment that I won't forget. And Suzanne's husband, Greg, and her daughter, Elise, always great seeing them at the chamber functions. And so without any further ado, let's get right into it and hear from Suzanne on an overview of what's going on in Washington and what impacts business. And I want to leave you with this before Suzanne speaks. I remember Suzanne one time saying her favorite sentence for anybody is hearing that you've got the job. And the U.S. Chamber is all about jobs and that policy creation that affects the job growth. And Suzanne, welcome. We're glad to have you and looking forward to hearing your update.
Thank you so much, Bill. And thanks to all of you in Hilton Head and Bluffton. You have a strong chamber and great business representation. It's just a delight to be with you this morning. Although I have to admit that seeing all the pictures of the beach and the golf courses while I was waiting was just making me jealous. And so I'm a little less delighted than I was moments ago. I'm kidding, although I'm just back from Kiowa, which I know is a little further south than where y'all are. But I love the state of South Carolina and really would love to retire there. So if anybody has an open job, give me a call, because South Carolina is definitely where I want to end up. Bill, you've been a great friend to the chamber. Your chamber has been a great partner to us. And I think this thing you've been doing with these weekly calls for your members and for South Carolinians has been just terrific. And I think it's another example of why you're a 5-star accredited chamber and why you are such a leader in that community. And if I could take just a minute and say that, I think sometimes within the chamber community, your community knows you as a leader where you are, but what they might not know is what a leader you personally are nationally, and how much chamber executives across the country look to you for ideas and thought partnership. And I know we feel that way at the U.S. Chamber, that we feel we get intelligence from you, ideas from you, support from you. And so thank you so much for your friendship and for your partnership. We really appreciate it. Let's see. I think you want me to talk about the economic recovery, talk a little bit about vaccines, talk a little bit about K through 12 education. I'm happy to do all of that. I'll be fast, and then you can ask as many questions as you want. It's a little harder in this environment, for those of you who give speeches. In the old environment, you'd be able to talk, and if you got a hard question, you could toss it to somebody. But in this environment, I guess I could toss it to my Labradoodle and see how she does if I get a tough one. Anyway, you just mentioned the economy and what was going on with the S&P, and we're certainly getting mixed signals, right? That GDP number was terrifying. But at the same time, the jobless numbers were a little better than we were expecting. And I think we can expect to see these kind of bumpy numbers that are hard to interpret for a little while. I know you've all been reading what I've been reading, which is this really a K-shaped recovery where you have a very sharp recovery for some communities and a really sharp continued decline for others. And I think that's really scary for those of us who try to represent entire communities. It's clear that COVID 19 is affecting different communities and different industries in really different ways. And it's part of why we're working so hard on this phase four relief bill. We know that we still need timely and targeted interventions to help people who are experiencing this unevenly recover faster. Central to that are the liability protection provisions. I know that your chamber is squarely behind this, so I won't waste a lot of time explaining it. But at the end of the day, there is no playbook for this. None of us have ever lived through a pandemic like this before. And to turn to businesses and say, provide essential services, to turn to schools and say, educate our kids, and yet have them be at risk of a lawsuit in the future for something there's no way they could have known now is just crazy. It's impossible. And so we want to take all of the good actors who are in good faith doing everything they can to serve their communities in a safe and sustainable way and protect their efforts to do that. Of course, bad actors should be punished, but we do need some very targeted and temporary protections to get this economy moving again. We're also advocating that the PPP programs are extended to 501c6 organizations like yours. We would like to see that in the next bill. We're hopeful about it. Our other priorities include obviously continued support for small and mid-sized employers, support for childcare and K through 12 schools, revised unemployment benefits and job training, and some state and local assistance. So we're working hard on those things. As you're reading, as you're hearing, the negotiations have been stalled, but we really believe they will get this deal done. We think they have to get it done, and they know that. Yesterday, the US Chamber launched a new campaign called The Cost of Inaction, which really focuses on the priorities I just mentioned, but also the cost of not getting it done. And yesterday, we really focused on schools. Bill mentioned this Path Forward program we've been doing. It's been so fun. So, the US Chamber Foundation has done a weekly program since this started on a path forward out of the pandemic and out of the recession. We've talked to everybody from the Gateses to, as you mentioned, Dr. Fauci. But last week, I think it all runs together, right? I think it was last week, I talked to the guy who runs the Association of School Superintendents and really talked to him about what he's hearing from across the country. And his number was that it was going to take an average of $485 a student, $485 a student for a school to get the right personal protective gear, get the right, whether it was thermometers or plexiglass or masks, et cetera, in order to be able to reopen. Well, this has got to be part of phase four, is this aid to the schools. So we are looking at ways to really highlight to members of Congress the cost of this inaction, starting with schools. And we know that you're already weighing in with your members of Congress. We know you're already talking to your delegation, and we would urge you to really, really keep that up. Talking about getting kids back to school, which has been the focus for so many of us, right? Not only as parents, and we worry about the social emotional development of our kids, but also as business leaders. And how do you go back to work if you can't put your kids in childcare, if you can't send them to school? Or really, what I'm the most worried about is we're going to have kind of rolling openings and closings, which make it really hard for a working parent to plan or for a manager to plan on what their workforce looks like. So, look, I think this is going to be really tough, but as Dr. Fauci said, we've got to get kids back in school as soon as conditions allow, and really creating an environment where people have better information on what those conditions look like. One of the people we talked to last week was the head of clinical research at Cornell, and she spent a lot of time talking about what works and how there are layers of protection that work, and that goes from testing to smaller pods to the equipment we mentioned, and how you can use those things to create layers that add up to a great deal of safety for the teachers, for the administrators, and for our kids, which is, of course, what we want. But look, at the end of the day, If the K through 12 schools don't have the funding to get this done, they're not going to be able to reopen. So this is a key priority for us in phase 4. And what we believe is that a school shouldn't be prevented from reopening because they're lacking funding. So look for us to keep working on it. You mentioned vaccines. Of course, this is the big holy grail that everybody's waiting for. I love Dr. Fauci's quote when he and I spoke. He said, "Science will come to our rescue. Science will come to our rescue." We know that science and smart planning are what's going to get us to the other side of this, to return to the office, to return to school. We know that a vaccine would be the ultimate silver bullet, but also that the therapeutics that are in development, the things that would help people survive this disease in a different way, would also give all of us the confidence to go back to, a normal life. The chamber has an initiative called Discover and Deliver, where we're highlighting this nationwide cross industry effort to develop a vaccine. There are currently more than 600 clinical trials underway for vaccines and therapeutics in the US, all across the states. 15 of those trials are taking place in South Carolina, which is a really remarkable number. We know that the private sector will carry new discovery from the labs to the market to people, and we're already trying to work on those supply chain issues, whether it's glass vials or the pieces that will matter for distribution once the science does come to our rescue. So, look, as I said a second ago, there's no playbook for this. I think we're all just doing our best in this moment to listen, to learn, and to operate the best we can with the information we have at any moment. If I had one message for you, it is there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's business that's leading the way to get us there. This is an exciting time to be a business person. Just a year ago, we would have meetings about what does business mean in society and how do we convince the next generation of the importance of business. And as Bill said a minute ago, the US Chamber, we talk all the time about how the most beautiful sentence most people ever hear in their lifetime is "you got the job," because it means you can create opportunity for your community, you can create opportunity for your family. It means that you can take care of yourself and then turn and care to other people. We know that that's what business does, that when business does well, it can do good. But we were worried about how we could get the next generation of people to understand that. I think in this pandemic, you're seeing it. You're really watching the next generation look to business to solve this, both the pandemic and the recession. And so maybe that's a bit of a silver lining, that people might better understand the role that we play. You can count on the US Chamber to do everything we can to advocate for the right policies to get us back to a new normal safely and sustainably, to help businesses steer the nation to economic recovery. And I know that you can count on Bill and other chamber leaders across the country on that effort as well. So, with that, I hope I covered the topics you wanted me to, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Suzanne, thank you so much. And just those words that there is light at the end of the tunnel and businesses leading the way is certainly great encouragement for all of us and something we needed to hear. Our first question comes this morning from Scott, and Scott is asking about the Chamber Foundation. If you could talk a little bit about what the Chamber Foundation does.
Absolutely. And I should say at US Chamber Foundation, let's see, uschamberfoundation.org are all of the Path Forward series. So if you want to watch the ones on schools, there's a really interesting one about reopening offices, where we interviewed a guy in the Netherlands who had put 1 million Chinese workers back in their offices and the lessons he learned from that. So they're all cataloged on the website if you want to see them. I think they're on YouTube and Apple Podcasts too. The foundation is a 501c3 that has several missions. One is that it does help businesses do good. So it has a big CSR component. The Center for Corporate Citizenship gives annual awards, promotes best practices, helps coordinate disaster relief, most recently, say, in Lebanon. If there are a bunch of companies who want to go in and help, how do they coordinate what they do to really bolster the impact and multiply the impact? The foundation has a Hiring Our Heroes big arm, where we help military spouses and vets get jobs and remove the obstacles to those jobs that are out there. There's a gigantic Center for Education and Workforce, which does a lot of work on talent pipeline, on K through 12 education, but also training and apprenticeships and internships and kind of workforce of the future issues. What did I miss? They talk a lot about emerging issues, what's coming down the pike that might not be ripe for policy yet, but is, I'll give you an example. We had a big dinner on pot and marijuana, and what does it mean? You know, if you, what does it mean to a transportation company that's not supposed to transport it, or banks that aren't supposed to take the money? What does it mean for drug testing for companies? And so that's not an area that the US Chamber is advocating policy on, but it's an emerging issue where a number of our members have questions, and the foundation can help get people together and talk about it. I think I covered most of the foundation there, but I'd urge you to get involved and go to the website and see if there are places that your companies can be recognized or your companies can participate.
Great, thank you for that answer. And we have posted the website in our chat box there, so people can grab that and check out the website. Another question comes from Dave, and Dave is asking about the liability protections in Tennessee becoming the 10th state to enact those. And it's certainly, I know, a big issue for the U.S. Chamber. And where do you see other states going with that?
Well, again, I think we'd like to see the federal protection so that a business really knows that it's safe. One of the things that we worry about with the patchwork of state action is we know that consumer confidence is key to getting us out of this recession, and that business confidence is key. And when different states have different rules, it doesn't add up to that confidence. So, an example would be, I live in Northern Virginia, I work in DC, my daughter goes to school in Maryland. We're all 2 miles from all of these borders, but the rules are different in each of these jurisdictions, even just about masks. So, when you go into a restaurant in one state and it's different than it is in the next state, it doesn't give the consumer confidence that anybody knows what they're talking about. So we love to see the states enacting these liability provisions, but it doesn't draw down the necessary step of Congress giving federal targeted, temporary, but super important and timely liability safe harbors for business and schools.
Thank you for that. A couple more here. One, Pam is asking if you could talk a little bit about therapeutics and what the scientists that you're talking with are saying about them, and as part of their discovery and discover and deliver initiative.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's so interesting to think about how much everybody has been learning since March. You've all read the same things about using fewer ventilators, what they've learned about clotting, how they've learned to treat this disease, putting people on their stomachs, the different things we thought you had, the ways you had to treat it in March versus now. And one of the things that we hear a lot about is that as places like New York come out of a peak, their doctors have a moment to take a breath and say, what worked? What did we learn? What came out of that? And the learning piece really helps the business piece and the science piece in developing both knowledge and therapeutics to help mitigate the impact of the disease. So the difference, obviously, you all know, is if you have a silver bullet vaccine, you don't get the disease. The therapeutic says if you get the disease, it's like taking an antibiotic when you get strep throat. You still have the disease, but there's a way through it. There's a way to get past it. And so the conventional wisdom has been that we'd have therapeutics before we had a vaccine. And I think what the business community and government leaders are really hoping is that they both help. They both restore confidence. They both reduce fear. They both allow us to get back to some semblance of normal.
All right, thank you. Next question comes to us from Dave, and Dave is asking about the how payroll tax deferral would affect incomes now, and how people would owe in 2021.
Yeah, Dave, we're worried about that in the sense of, and I can send you, Bill, later. I'll send you some documentation on it that you can share with your members if you haven't seen it already. We're really worried that some of the ways that payroll tax deferral is being talked about would be a huge burden in 2021, and we're also worried about just the complexity for businesses in the way that this is being talked about, in the way that it could be enacted. And so we're not fans of the current proposal. And I can send you some details about that so that you can take a look at it.
Okay, thank you. That'll be helpful. And the last question is asking what you're hearing about mandatory vaccines and the thoughts of the U.S. Chamber on that, and coming to us from Linda this morning.
Hi, Linda. I have not heard anything about mandatory vaccines. That's interesting. Um, yeah, I've not heard anybody use those two words together.
Okay. All right. Suzanne, thank you. It's been a great dialogue with you. We know that you've got another super busy day ahead of you, but it's great, even if we can't be together, it's great seeing your smiling face and hearing all the things that you shared with us today.
Listen, Bill, I can't thank you enough for your partnership, for your leadership in the Chamber of Commerce Committee of 100. Um, to be a five-star accredited chamber, I'm not sure your members know how hard that is, how rare it is, and how much work you had to put into doing that. But listen, to all of you, thank you for what you're doing. You're providing jobs and opportunity to families and communities in a way that is so important to this country's future. And I applaud what you're doing. I'm a former business owner. I know how hard it is. So anything the U.S. Chamber can do to have your back, you let us know anytime. And thank you for having me this morning.
We'll do it. Have a great rest of your day, Suzanne. Thank
Thanks.
you.
All too. Bye.
Okay. Bye bye. Our next speaker this morning, it was terrific to hear from Suzanne Clark, and our next speaker will be giving us a little bit of a teaser about the seminar that we're doing this afternoon in partnership. We all know that how the pandemic has changed the way that we live, and the balancing act between work and family is certainly no small challenge at all. And our next speaker is helping companies find ways to meet that challenge. And with us is Willis HR, and I'd like to welcome Jada Willis. And again, she'll be doing the seminar in partnership with Melissa Azalian this afternoon at 1 o'clock. And in the chat box, there'll be a registration piece there. And so, Jada, welcome to you this morning. We also know that you've done a free resource guide. You've created that, and for working parents, and we'll also appreciate you talking a little bit about how our listeners could get that as well. So thank you for being with us both this morning, and then again back at 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I didn't know that I was going to be following, someone famous here. So I, I really want to echo a lot of what Suzanne was saying. And it was actually a really good introduction to this afternoon. And so the session today is balancing it all, managing work, family, and school in the time of COVID. So I run an HR consulting firm, and we have clients throughout the Southeast and in a few other states. And so a lot of the questions that we're getting from business owners, leaders, and then even employees is, what am I going to do? How do I manage all of this? And how do I make sure that, I can retain my employees and then also even be, human in this process, right? Run the business, but then still maintain that human aspect. What can I do to help? And I think that a lot of businesses and a lot of individuals are just at a loss. And so this presentation this afternoon comes at such a great time because we are going to I pulled together a collection of what my other clients are doing, what are other organizations doing, what's the community doing. So there will be step by information that I urge you that if you have something else at 1 o'clock, I think you need to move it, because this is such a great resource of not just myself, but even the other presenters, of talking about how to have those conversations with your employees, but then also how do I create a parent-friendly organization, even as a small business. And I think that's key, because we think that this is just a company. That's not necessarily the case. And so I'm going to emphasize later today, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We are customizing this process because, as Suzanne said, we don't have a playbook, but we are creating our own resources and pulling together. And this afternoon is a really good example of that. So I don't want to ruin the surprise, but every attendee, every individual that registers and attends the webinar is going to receive a free guide for working parents. It's the survival guide, and it's a really cool resource of actual websites, actual tools that are going to help working parents. And I have to say, like, literally survive. Do whenever your kids have that downtime and they're doing virtual learning, what do they do when they have quote unquote recess? How are you structuring yourself, your time, and then also how are you taking care of yourself? That's going to be all a part of the resource guide. And more importantly, it's something that you as the employer can share with your employees immediately. And that's an immediate win for you and your employees. So I'm so excited to share these resources. I love helping. And we even have with Willis HR another presentation today as well. So this is this is the tool that we need to get in front of people, working and business owners and leaders alike. So I encourage you to register because it's going to be the information that you need, and there's going to be a Q&A as well. Thanks for having me.
Jada, thank you so much. There are a couple questions for you, but we're going to hold those until this afternoon. You have to dial in at 1 to be able to get Jada's answers on those. And thank you. And we can tell that this afternoon will be special, and we certainly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. We'll see you this
We'll
afternoon.
see you at 1. Thank you. I mentioned in the beginning about our 2 strategic planning sessions, one on Monday and one on Tuesday, both virtual. And this morning, I wanted for everybody to be able to get a recap from our research partners at MMGY Next Factor. And back with us again today is Greg Oates, and he and his team are the global leaders in tourism research. And Greg, it was great to have you on Hilton Head Island for a couple of days, but it's also Wednesday, and we're glad to see you on video again today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bill. It was absolutely fantastic that Paul and I could be in Hilton Head for another couple days this week. I'm calling in today from Naples CVB, where we're about to get on stage for the annual general meeting. So I just want to spend a couple minutes here to give an update on what has transpired this week. Next slide, please. So we started the destination management plan last year, and the goal is really to develop a holistic, community-driven destination plan that really involves the community and looks at tourism within the greater scope of the general economy. Like you have the Parks and Recreation Plan and the Arts and Culture Plan, as well as the Comp Plan. And by the way, we're in a lot of destinations. We look at a lot of civic planning strategies, and yours are very impressive just in terms of how comprehensive and the breadth of those. So whatever we do is 100% in alignment with what's already happening around the rest of the island. And so over the last year, we've done a lot of different community engagement. We've done a lot of individual stakeholder interviews in person, on Zooms. We've actually done well over the 20 that's mentioned there. We've done 9 focus groups with local key stakeholders in different segments: hospitality, tours, restaurants, that type of thing. We've done 2 general town hall sessions where we invited residents. Those are very, very successful in terms of the feedback that we got, and also just looking at some of the differing priorities and different segments of the community and trying to build coalition there. We also did a Destination Next luxury survey, which is asking key stakeholders to really look at the different attributes in the destination and see where there's opportunities and challenges. And then we recently did an Organization Next survey, which looks at the chamber and how to proceed moving forward over the next 10 years. But then this week we did the planning workshop, and that's now where we brought all of this community engagement together and all the different viewpoints and the data and sort of all of the opportunities that everyone has brought forth. And we started developing strategic goals, and we came up with 5. They speak to hospitality and events, experiences, mobility and connectivity, workforce. Workforce is a big one in terms of workforce housing, workforce healthcare, workforce development, and then another strategic goal aligned around regional collaboration. And so each one of those has a series of initiatives, actionable initiatives that will have a timeline, who's leading that, outcomes, targets, that sort of thing. We just put those together and we shared those with everyone in the destination during the last 2 days. And just wanted to, next slide, please. Out of the 35 initiatives that were put forth, we asked everyone on calls in the last couple of days to rank them in terms of how critical they feel they are for Hilton Head Island. And again, this is looking from now and 10 years out. So we asked everyone to rank how critical they are from 1 to 5. We're now sharing those actionable initiatives community in Hilton Head Island feel are most important for the destination through the lens of the visitor economy over the next 10 years. And just go through these quickly. Enhance island-wide biking and walking trail system. This isn't just about the activity. It's also about getting people out of cars. It's about driving incremental visitor spend to more businesses and more communities across the island. It also speaks to potentially opportunities in the future around e-mobility. I know there's a lot of questions about that now, but we're looking at this from a 10-year perspective. So a lot going on with that first one. Number two, and we heard this a lot from both the public sector and the private sector, elected officials, developers, and other stakeholders, but this idea of redeveloping dated residential and commercial building stock, both on and off island, for workforce housing. A lot involved there, yes, but clearly some interest, and now looking at what types of incentives packages are potentially available to move forward with that, but clearly a high priority for the island. Moving on, develop social, cultural, and environmental sustainability initiatives to create a shared vision for Hilton Head Island's future. Hilton Head Island was founded on ideas of putting forth covenants and deeds to protect the environment as development happens. You own that. That's legitimate. You've been at the fore of that for decades. So how do you take that and really elevate it moving forward? Next one, upgrade island connectivity infrastructure with 5G. There's a lot of talk about diversifying the economy, attracting more business, more investors, perhaps attracting remote workers. Having a solid backbone of Wi-Fi is critical for that. Next one, develop a local culinary and culture experience trail network to showcase small businesses and unique local history across the island. This speaks to diversity and equity and the idea of connecting experiences across sectors to create a really interesting visitor experience, but also one that definitely would be special for locals. Next, enhance and promote awareness of the existing hospitality culture training program, developed in collaboration with local educational institutions. So service, of course, is critical, and having been there, there's just something about living on Hilton Head Island that really comes through people. There's a graciousness and a warmth. But at the same time, you still always want to be innovative and elevate professionalism at all the time. So that is already existence, but how do you elevate and expand on that? Next, enhance and promote awareness of existing, just did that one. 3 here at 4, develop Hilton Head Island as a year-round epicenter for holistic, physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Hilton Head Island is so perfectly situated to really be at the forefront of wellness, but also well-being beyond the physical wellness attribute, and looking at how you can really address our entire well-being. A lot of demand there in tourism moving forward. Then support the Mitchellville Development Plan with new amenities and programming. We've seen the master plan. We've talked to the people behind that. Very exciting what's happening there. And then lastly, just develop a series of community-driven concerts, events, and festivals. This originally came out of the idea of speaking and engaging younger audiences, more things to do at night and whatnot, but that of course applies to all age groups. So we really want to focus on what we can do there. So those were the highlights from the community feedback the last couple of days. I hope you find that interesting. And thank you, Bill, for letting us share that.
Greg, thank you. Thanks for being with us this morning, and we look forward to the next steps on the plan.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Greg was recently married within the last 2 weeks, and another piece about Greg that you might want to know is that several years ago, he used to vacation on Hilton Head Island every year. So Greg certainly knows the hospitality well here, and the newlywed. And I told him he needs to bring his wife back. Greg, have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you. Bye now.
Okay. Thank you. We know that schools are starting and plans are in place, and we're pleased to have Dr. Richard Goff with us as our next speaker this morning. So much going on at TCL, and a huge project that there's so much excitement about, being the Culinary Institute of the South. So we look forward to Dr. Goff's update on TCL, as well as the new Culinary Institute. That ground is broken and things are moving. Dr. Goff, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm very happy to be with you this morning to talk just a bit about an initiative that we're very, very excited about. You know, I came to the Low Country about 6 years ago from Pinehurst, North Carolina, a community that's not too awfully different from our own. And, you know, when I first got here, and Bill, you know this, about 6 years ago when I first got here, all I heard about, or one of the things I heard the most about, was the need to support hospitality and culinary in the Low Country, and how are we going to do that? And we started talking, we brought together a number of stakeholders and folks, people like Sea Pines Resort, the Surge Group, Omni, Sonesta, the Weston, US Foods, Fat Patties, others in the industry who knew what needed to be done. Most of the comments came down to let's get together and create a world-class, overused term, but truly a world-class culinary institute. We all know, to set the stage, that the Low Country travel and tourism is the area's #1 economic driver, and it desperately needs, the culinary sector desperately needs locally trained and a professional workforce to help us remain healthy and competitive. In fact, we know that the regional job growth analysis predicts, this is pre-COVID, 500 new food service jobs annually, 500 new service jobs annually in the Low Country. And many of those jobs will require an associate degree or some sort of certificate in culinary arts. So we've begun the process of creating the project as an offshoot of the college called the Culinary Institute of the South, which I think is a fantastic name. It will deliver state-of-the-art culinary arts training to prepare future award-winning chefs, bakers, and hospitality leaders. It was funded and is being funded entirely by locally by Beaufort County School District and the town of Bluffton, and private support. The facility will be about a 26,000 square foot facility, best in class training facility. And we expect to open in January of 2021. We're about to actually break ground. We're waiting on the final permitting from Bluffton. And so we'll start breaking ground any day now. It'll accommodate about 300 students, and it'll feature six academic classrooms, 2 teaching kitchens, 2 baking labs, lecture theater, high-tech lecture theater, and a teaching restaurant. And additionally, a very important component of that facility will be an interpretive center. We like to call it, it's got a name, and we're going to call it the Foodseum. Do you get that, like museum with food? Foodseum. And it's a uniquely positioned operation to tell the story of Southern food and the Low Country cuisine. Being located between Savannah and Charleston, we think it's going to be very popular. It'll showcase exhibits, visual displays, Low Country agriculture, farming history, and artifacts, photographs and videos, and it will have revolving exhibits. So this institute, the Culinary Institute of the South, will offer a variety of associate degrees and certificates in culinary arts, baking and pastry arts, hospitality, and tourism. So we're very, very excited about this. We feel like it's going to be very popular, and we are so very grateful for the funding that has come locally, and we just can't wait to get started. So, Bill, that's pretty much it. Can I field any questions or field any comments?
Dr. Goff, thank you. Yes, our first question comes from Kayla, and Kayla is asking, has COVID-19 caused you to change any of the building design?
No, actually, it has not. Maybe we are naively moving forward, thinking that by the time this building comes online and we start putting our students through, we have about 100 students in the pipeline already. In January of 2021, that this will be behind us. But in the event that it's not, we will implement appropriate social distancing and other protocols that need to be put in place, similar to what we're trying to do now for our regular students in our regular classes.
Thank you for that answer. Next question comes from Alice, and Alice is asking what the TCL's schedule will look like as far as virtual or in-class learning for the fall.
Okay, for this fall, we have, well, let me just back up a second and say that we finished out our spring semester entirely online. That became effective in March. Summer semester, which we're completing now, is entirely online. Fall semester, which will begin next week, is going to be about 80% online or hybrid, meaning there'll be some face-to-face interaction, but mostly virtual. And there'll be some face-to-face using the correct protocols. But it's just really hard for a technical college in many ways that have high-touch type programs to do everything virtually. We have a number of allied health science programs that just require you to be face-to-face. We have trades programs like truck driver training and welding and HVAC and you name it. We have a whole array of programs that just have to be done face-to-face. So we're going to do that. We're going to have more sections. We're going to spread people out. We're going to take the proper protocols for fall semester. And I hope that maybe by spring semester, which begins in January, we'll be able to do more face-to-face courses, because so many of our students need to be in the classroom and not face-to-face. Many of our students are first generation college students. Many are in home environments that are not really conducive to distance learning, and they need that face-to-face interaction. And we're going to do our best to get back to that as absolutely soon as possible.
Thank you for that, Dr. Goff. The next question is coming from Brennan, and Brennan's asking what you're seeing in enrollment, and has COVID impacted that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. As many of you may know, only about 20% of our funding actually comes from the state appropriations. The majority of the rest comes from local government and mostly through revenues that come from tuition and fees. So enrollment is very important to us to keep our operation viable. We finished the summer strong. We worked very hard to keep our enrollment up. We ended the summer about flat in terms of enrollment. For the fall, this fall semester, we are actually down about 8%. And we're working to improve that some, and I think we can, but I think it's going to end up being about 8% down. That is better than the average of the 16 technical colleges in the state. I think we've done a good job in that regard. But we are going to be down, and we have done some belt tightening, and we've asked everybody to do a little bit more, and we're going to see this thing through, and we hope that we can recover our enrollment come January.
Dr. Goff.
Yes.
Thank you for that answer. Yes. And the last question we have is coming from Debbie, and Debbie is asking if needed, do you have room to expand at your New River campus?
Yeah. Thank you, Debbie. We do have a fair amount of property at our New River campus. A lot of it is wetlands and can't be built on without a lot of remediation and effort and cost, but we do have room for an additional building or two, actually 2 or 3. We have in our long-range capital planning a second workforce training center to be constructed on that campus. And we believe that south of the Broad is where most of our students come from. That's where most of our students want to attend. We have a nice historic campus up here in Beaufort, but it's a drive for a lot of people, and they would prefer to be in class south of the Broad. So the next building we build, it will most likely be on that campus. Additionally, our Buckwalter site, where the Culinary Institute of the South is being built, has sufficient land to build another building of a equivalent size to the Culinary Institute, about 28,000 square feet. And that's also another possibility.
Dr. Goff, thank you for being with us today and sharing the input. Certainly exciting news about the Culinary Institute of the South. And we're looking forward to that January of 2021 opening. And congratulations on what just sounds like it's going to be a phenomenal facility. It
will be. And anybody who would like some more information can contact the college, my office at 843-525-8247. And I'll direct you to the appropriate people here. Think about enrolling in one of those French pastry classes or one of those cuisine classes. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It sounds fun. Thanks again for being with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Our final speaker today is Dr. Michael Kaka, and Dr. Kaka is with DHEC, and we've had the pleasure to hear from weekly updates. And Dr. Kaka, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Good to be back on the call again. So I'll go ahead and give my typical update on the numbers. So for the past week for the state of South Carolina, we're reporting 5,214 confirmed cases and 328 probable new cases of COVID-19. This brings the total number of people with the disease in the state to 106,574 confirmed cases and 1,098 probable cases. So for Beaufort County in the past week, this includes 198 new confirmed cases and 5 new probable cases in the past week, making the total there 4,382 confirmed cases and 15 probable cases. For the Hilton Head zip codes 29926 and 29928, 38 new cases were reported for a total of 775 cases. And for the Bluffton zip codes of 29909 and 29910, 46 new cases were reported for a total of 1,301 cases. So once again, the state of South Carolina, Hilton Head, Bluffton, and Beaufort County have seen a decrease from the previous week before. The 198 new cases reported for Beaufort County is lower than the 452 new cases reported the week prior, so more than 50% drop in cases there. Those 38 new cases for Hilton Head in the past week is lower than the 58 from the week prior. And for Bluffton, the 46 new cases is lower than the 91 reported cases in the previous week. So overall good numbers based on the case numbers. Unfortunately, we're also reporting 218 additional confirmed deaths in the state and 27 probable deaths in the past week. This brings the total number of people confirmed to have passed away from the virus to 2,230. There's also been 113 probable deaths related to COVID-19. There were 3 additional confirmed deaths among Beaufort County individuals, and the total there is at 58. There were no additional probable deaths in Beaufort County, and the total there remains at 2. So new deaths reported in the state decreased last week compared to the previous week from 238 confirmed deaths to 218 confirmed deaths. This is the third straight week of decreases in deaths for the state. Beaufort County also saw a decrease over the week from 8 deaths in the week prior to 3 deaths in the previous week. So trending in the right direction, and very encouraging signs from the data that we have. I do have to temper everyone's excitement briefly at this point because we have noted a decrease in the number of tests that are being run, and this may be partially contributing to the decrease in case numbers. It's unclear the reason that the test numbers are going down. DHEC does continue to offer our free community testing. This may partially be due to reports people have heard about long waits to get results back, and it's pretty understandable that many may not want to get tested if they're going to have to wait a week to find out what their results are anyway. Fortunately, I can report that issues around that are improving. A lot of the private labs that were having slower results are reporting much faster turnaround test times now. And hopefully here in the near future, we're going to see more rapid tests out in the community that can provide these results within hours. So ultimately, controlling the numbers does come down to the same preventive actions that we've discussed over the past few months. Testing is a very helpful part of that strategy, but we all have to make sure that we take the preventive steps before we have the results back, because we ultimately do become contagious before we know the ultimate results of the test. So as always, remembering to maintain that social distancing, wearing a mask when out in public, and practicing good hand washing. So for any other updates on COVID-19, any other information, feel free to visit our website, scdhec.gov/COVID-19, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, Dr. Keka, thank you. It is encouraging to hear the word decrease, and we continue to hope that you'll be able to continue talking about decreases. And with that said, the question comes to us from Pam, and Pam is asking, when do you believe that we will get rapid testing?
So the rapid testing is available. There's some long-term care facilities that have the machines. I've talked to private providers who are working on getting the machines in. The machines are available. It's a matter of getting them out into the community and getting them into regular use. So I don't know exactly a timeline when it's going to be more widely available, but it's something on the near horizon.
Okay, and we have a comment here from John, and John saying the free tests are easy. I got tested at Bluffton High School, no lines, and open till 11 a.m. This morning. So I give that as a word of information. And John, thank you for sharing that with us. Dr. Keka, that's going to do it for today. Thank you for the update, and we'll look forward to another one next week.
Excellent. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. You might want to go ahead and mark your calendars now. Next week, we'll be having Sid Evans, and Sid is the editor-in-chief of the iconic Southern Living brand. Sid speaks to 23 million people each month, and he's going to share what some of the research and insight are from their loyal fan base. So mark your calendars again. We'll do it next Wednesday, 9:15 a.m. And as always, be kind, stay safe, and wear your mask. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thanks for being with us.